the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, this is an OSU update with Kyle Fredrickson. I'm Jenny Carlson. Kyle, non-conference play is over for the Cowboys, but with a little bit of an extended game week with that Texas Tech game being next Thursday, we get a chance to reflect a little bit more on non-conference than we might otherwise. So what's the feeling of what went well in these non-conference games for the Cowboys?
You know, it's a good question, and I think when you really look at a wide lens angle of how it went, it couldn't have gone much better. You knew the Florida State game was going to be a serious challenge, and then the Cowboys took care of business. So being 2-1, it's where they expected to be. When you look on the good side of things, I think the one thing that we analyzed when we look at this team going into this year was the defense, how young they were, how inexperienced they were. But through 3 games, they've really proved to be a strength. You know, the level of competition maybe isn't what the Big 12 is going to be, you know, game in and game out. But to have such little depth in the secondary and such little depth at linebacker, these guys who have been making their first career starts, Seth Jacobs, you know, Ashton Lampkin, they've really impressed, showed off some team speed. And I don't think this is going to be a defense that Big 12 teams can look at and say, hey, I think we can put up a lot of yards against these guys. I think they'll be as formidable as a lot of these other teams. Other reasons to be happy going into the non-conference are into the conference schedule for OSU fans. They stayed healthy, other than J.W. Walsh, obviously, with his injury. With such little depth, you need to keep those young guys fresh, and you need to make sure that they're on the field. And through 3 games, they've done that.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, you mentioned the injury to Walsh, which has caused the quarterback shakeup. Is that at the top of the list of things that maybe that didn't go so well, or what would you consider on the sort of the flip side of non-conference play?
Well, right. You know, I think when you look at the things that are a concern, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just the offensive line's play. We knew that this was a young group coming in and that there would be some struggles in the run game, and we've seen that because the 2 workhorses as of right now, Desmond Rowland and Rennie Childs, both of those guys are averaging about 3.7 yards per rush, and that's really not going to jump out at you. Neither of them have really had that big breakaway run that maybe we expected at this point in the season. So there are some concerns on that. Those young guys up front are going to have to gel. Mike Gundy said as much after the game, and he kind of pointed that to being the reason why they ran so much in the second half, just to see if those guys could get in a rhythm and figure out what they need to do to be successful. So that's got to be a concern. And there's also, like I said earlier, the lack of depth on defense. If one of those guys gets hurt, if a Seth Jacobs or a Ryan Simmons or those guys in the secondary, they're going to face some pretty big problems because they haven't been rotating guys in and out very much.
All right, thanks, Kyle. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.